Now we're ready to insert the tire balls into the tire carcass. We have the tire carcass lubed, we have the tire balls lubed, and the next step is to get the balls oriented to be able to inflate them to the final pressure. Now you do have a couple of different options on putting the tire balls in the tire. One of the old methods that we used to use is just a standard wood C-clamp. And what we do is we put the C-clamp on one side of the tire, and each tire ball cell has a valve on it, and it's normally oriented to one side or the other. So what we do is we line all the valve side facing up towards the tire cavity, or away from the towards the rim side, and we line them up all on one side. So if you see, you can take this and use the C-clamp as a backstop, and you want to line the valves up all the way around this way. Now, one of the faster ways that we found over time after doing many installations is we have used this 55-gallon drum trash barrel to hold the tire, and I've actually inserted the one half of the rim already inside the tire, and this acts very similar to what the C-clamp does. So as you can see, I've already inserted 13 of the tire balls inside of the tire. I've oriented all the valves on the same side, or the up side, towards my area. I've got one more to install here. You can see the last one is a snug fit, and that's the way you want it. You don't want all the tire balls moving around, and this way it's easy to get them all uniformly in there when they're all at the same pressure and they all have about 2 to 3 psi in them. So now that we have the balls inside of the carcass, they're all oriented properly, they're all uniformly. Now we're ready to insert the needles and start the inflation process. Now that we have all the tire ball prepping done, we've got the tire carcass lubricated, the tire balls are lubricated, we have the rim free of any burrs or scratches that could do any harm to the tire balls. We have all the tire balls oriented inside the tire the same way, all 14. We're ready for the final 2 steps, which is the inflation process and the mounting process. Now, as I mentioned before, this particular inflator has 16 ports on it. We're only using 14 balls. So what I've done is I've left the final 2 ports open, and I have the toggle switches in the off position. And remember, away from the hose is on and towards the hose is off. So I'm going to insert the final needle. Okay, now that I have all the needles in place, we're ready to start the inflation process, but I do want to talk a little bit about how we have the tire oriented on the tabletop. I'm actually using the clamps. It's not clamped into the rim. It's actually just holding the rim sunken down into the cavity here, and the tire is actually setting up. And it's actually got the rim in a good place to start the inflation. So now that we have everything together, I'm going to turn the 14 toggle switches away from the hose so that they're on. Now I'm slowly going to inflate the tire. And I like to inflate it, once it gets to about 10 psi, I like to only air it up about 1 psi per second. With this particular application, we're going to air it up to about 18 psi. Okay, now that the air pressure is set, we're ready to move to the final mounting step. Now the final inflation pressure is set. What I've done is I'm going to turn all the toggle switches back towards the hose in the off position, and I'm going to remove all the needles. Just to show you how far the rim is actually up into the cavity here of the tire, all the way up to where the needles were. So now we're ready to lock the tire in on the stand, which I'm going to do. So now that the tire is locked into place, we're ready to start mounting the tire on the rim.